Hey, it's Mike from The Mike Wagner Show. Thanks for tuning in to The Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM. If you're interested in sponsoring my show, you can send me an email to themikewagnershow@gmail.com, or you could also donate to the podcast. Just go to the Donate Listen site, and you can also donate whatever you like. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. For those who are interested, Anchor can give you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. We've got creation tools, allows you to record and edit podcasts so it sounds great, and they'll distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple, Google, many more. And you can make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. So download the Anchor app for free or go to Anchor FM to get started.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show brings you famous celebrities and amazing people from all over the world. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And watch the interview on YouTube. So sit back and relax and enjoy the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention The Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and Apple. Also take The Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device and subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. We're here with a wonderful writer from Northern Virginia. He's an author and retired Army veteran, and he currently works for a federal agency and a professor at a local college. And he writes based on experience, and he's got two books called Danger Down Under and his newest Term Limits, which is out on Amazon right now, and also dealing with PTSD, and talks about some of that and some of the experience as well too. And of course, you know what the term limits is all about. It's not what you think, and he's going to tell you all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, live from Northern Virginia, the true patriot of America in the good old USA, Paul Hobert. Paul, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show.
Anytime. So you're an author and retired Army veteran. You live in Northern Virginia. You work for the federal agency and also professor at a local college. And your writings are based on experience and also dealing with PTSD. And you treat unpleasant memories in a creative way. And you got a couple of books I'll call Danger Down Under and your newest Term Limits out on Amazon. But before we get into all that, tell us how I got started.
Well, Mike, to be honest with you, while I was still in the military, I had the opportunity to become an adjunct professor while I was still on active duty. And as I was teaching, I just started experimenting with writing. And of course, that was before I was diagnosed with PTSD. I was still on active duty at the time. So then I just wrote as a creative outlet. And that's kind of how I got started. And then as I continued to go into my military career, didn't get as much opportunity to write creatively because the Army kept me pretty busy. It wasn't until a few years after I retired, I looked at it and decided to pick up the pen again, or the keyboard, if you would. And I started developing symptoms of PTSD and was diagnosed with it a couple of years ago. And I find now that writing is a creative outlet that actually lets me express feelings, and it's actually helped me quite a bit in dealing with it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. And also, when it comes to PTSD as well, too, it's like, how did you first experience it and knowing that you had PTSD? What was like the first experience that you had, or the first flashback that said, I have PTSD?
Well, to be honest with you, I resisted it for the longest time. I kind of suspected, but how it developed was I began to have, just out of nowhere, I would have feelings, very, very dark, depressed feelings, I would withdraw. I wouldn't talk. And even if I were at work in my office, I would literally just sit back in my chair at my desk and just withdraw. And I started to realize, yeah, something's wrong here. And it progressed to the point where I would actually be somewhere and I would break out in tears. Just be emotional. And my wife, she kept encouraging me to go see someone and get some help. But, you spend all those years in the military, you're kind of in a career where you're expected to have that, how can I say, that certain air of machismo about you because you've been doing so many things for all these years. And I was really, really reluctant to admit that there was something that I needed help with. And thanks to her and her encouragement, I went to see my doctor, talked to him, and he definitely referred me to one of the clinical psychologists that the VA uses, and I have now been under her care for about the last 2.5 years. Happy to say that I don't have to, I don't have the type where I have to take medicine. I've been able to at least control it and help manage it with her help without anything else. But the writing is something that really helps as a creative outlet and a form of expression that helps me release things that may otherwise be kept inside.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing as well, too. And you're also getting with people who experience the whole PTSD and everything else. And you also wrote a book called Danger Down Under, which is set in Australia. That's one of your first books. And also tell us about that.
Yeah, that was one of my early books. And just so your listeners know, I actually just had an opportunity to do a rewrite of that. So the latest edition of that is dated 2000 this year, as a matter of fact, early 2019. But that was a book where, and let me just share this with you too about the writing. That book is written in a way where I write fiction from a very realistic viewpoint or a very realistic storyline. And what I mean by that is, the movies today are full of things with people holding on to the outside of airplanes while they're going 400 miles an hour in the air, or people jumping on the top of cars inside tunnels while they're on car chases. And it's exciting. It's Hollywood. But I try to write from a fiction storyline that is much more realistic. And so for Danger Down Under, I spent a large portion of my career in the military as a nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare specialist. So I had a lot of background, of course, in that field, and I even taught as a military instructor. And that book, I used a lot of my experiences, a lot of my professional knowledge to create a story about a chemical spill during World War II that actually was to put it bluntly, blame a Nazi submarine that was actually on its way to Japan, and it was sunk along the Timor Strait, and it was loaded with sarin nerve agent, who the Nazis developed at that time during World War II. So it was something unknown to man. And it eventually leaked out into the environment and created this toxic chemical, which had a bad effect on the marine life along the Timor Strait in northern Australia. So basically, you have a race between the government and the military trying to keep it under control, trying to keep the story hidden from the public. And you have a group of people who were shipwrecked on one of the Timor Islands who are encountering a very oversized and overgrown Komodo dragon that's terrorizing the entire Timor Strait in northern Australia.
Wow, that is something, too. And also, where can they find your book?
Well, that one is available. It's available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. It's also available on the Libris the website. I also have a Facebook page under my name, Paul Hobert. You'll also find it listed online under the literaryvet.net, which is my website. So all the information is there about all my books, all my writing. And I can share that with you again later near the end of the program.
Okay, that sounds great. We'll talk about your book, Term Limits, as well, too. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, and Google Play. You can also take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device and subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. We're here with author Paul Hobert, and retired Army veteran, Northern Virginia. He works for a federal agency and a professor at a local college. He's a writer based on experience. We talked about a little bit book about Danger Down Under, and he's got a new book called Term Limits. It's a political crime thriller, and it's not the term limits we're thinking of currently in our government. It's a different type of term limits, and you can tell us all about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Mike. In fact, I've had a couple of people actually email me from my website telling me that they went on there and looked at the title of the book and then realized once they read it wasn't what they thought. So, it's not one of those political science gripe books about, term limits of congressmen. A lot of people have opinions about that may or may not be a good idea depending on your point of view. But this book here, you're correct, is a political crime thriller. And it is along those storylines in that you finally have someone who was treated badly, or his family was treated badly by the government. And he looked at the political situation in Washington and realized, something needs to change. The only thing is, the type of change that he wants to enact is a deadly one, and he is actually enacting his own form of term limits in that he's going around systematically bumping off congressmen. Mm-hmm. And, of course, while he's doing that, the FBI is on his tail, and they're trying to stop him before he can go through, the houses of Congress and require a mass re-election. But it is a political crime thriller. Again, like I told you, I write from a very realistic point or platform when I write fiction. So anything I write in the book, if it's something I am unfamiliar with, I've researched it. It's factual, but it's written. The facts are written along with the fiction. So you have a very credible storyline and something that I think, a lot of people would enjoy.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the way the Congress is going these days too. You hear about the shootings, the threats, and everything else. And has there been a possibility of that actually happening in Congress as well too, where there could be an active shooter possibly?
Well, I will share this with you. It's very interesting, and I'm sure your listeners will probably remember the story. You remember the shooting that took place at the ball field right here in Alexandria, Virginia?
Yes, I remember.
The group of congressmen were practicing for a softball game, and a guy came and decided he was going to shoot up the field. Oddly enough, my book was released by Olympia Publishing the very next day after that happened.
Wow.
So my wife was joking with me while I was writing the book. She was telling me, she said, you're going to have the FBI or somebody knocking on your door. And she said, if I open the door and it's them, she said, I'm just going to tell them, hey, I'm just here to clean up the house. I don't know this guy. But it was a big coincidence that my book was released by my publisher the day after that shooting happened. And, my wife and I both looked at that and I said, well, thank goodness, at least it was the day after.
Oh, my goodness. And, and also, what's your plan for next book as well, too? And what's that can be based on?
Well, I'm in the middle of two projects right now. I'm actually writing a follow-on to Term Limits. It's called Manhunt. So it will have several of the same investigators, their characters in the story, but the storyline will be set in French Polynesia, and just don't want to give away too much, but actually these investigators from Term Limits continue a related investigation where they have to travel to French Polynesia and try to track someone down that's wanted by the FBI. So it's called Manhunt. I'm about 5 chapters in. One of the other things, too, let me just share with you that I do when I write, is I actually use a lot of local features or landmarks for the areas where my books are set. You know, for instance, in Manhunt, I'm writing right now, we have a candle store, a local candle store that makes their own soy-based candles here in our small town. And I am including them in the write-in of Manhunt as part of the story. When I wrote Term Limits, one of the killings of the congressman took place from the small bell tower here where I live on top of my city hall. So people who are from this area can read the story and definitely identify with some of the local landmarks. So as I said, I do that type of research when I write, even if it's not in my area. The other project that I'm working on now is actually one that my doctor encouraged me to continue on, because it actually came to me just actually about a month and a half ago, and I started putting it together as well. So I've got 2 of them going at once. And this one, I haven't quite put a final title on it, but it's going to include a lot of my true life experiences, but it will be a work of fiction, and it's going to be a fiction about a veteran who retires from the military, but his life changes because once he gets out of the military, he's able to start doing some of the things that he never had an opportunity to do while he was in, to include get married. And long story short, there's going to be a dog in this book that's going to change this man's life. And that's basically where I'm going with that story as well. So I think it'll give me the opportunity, definitely as an outlet. I will incorporate some of my own personal experiences, all based on fact, into this work of fiction and combine it with other fictional material to write the book.
That is amazing. We'll look forward to that and like to have you back on talking about your book. And there was one question that I had as well, too. Who are your favorite writers growing up?
You know what? Having a military background, one of the favorite writers I used to have was Tom Clancy. He wrote from such an incredibly accurate storyline. I will say that he was probably one of my favorites. I didn't read a lot of the classics, but I do have to say that Dickens was another one that I really enjoy reading. But as far as more modern writers, I think Tom Clancy was probably one of the ones I really enjoyed reading.
Of course, you know, among the books as well, too. What's to consider your favorite project and most challenging among the books?
Which one do I consider? I'm sorry, most challenging?
Which one do you consider your favorite project the most challenging among the books you've written?
Well, I have to say, I think Danger Down Under flowed for me very well, as did Term Limits. And let me just share with you, the way I write is I start off with an idea, a major story theme and a major idea, and I begin to write. And I do not outline my books before I begin writing. Mm-hmm. So I begin writing the stories, and as I write them, I will write bullet ideas at the bottom of the page where I'm writing the actual manuscript of the book. Uh-huh. And so that's kind of how creatively I write. So as far as which ones are easier, I pretty much do them all that way, and I've actually changed some of the complete major storylines. And for instance, in Term Limits, I actually changed the culprit, the killer, I changed a few major pieces of information about that killer in mid-story just by how I wrote the bullets and as I was going along. But as far as currently, I think actually the one that I'm really enjoying, and even though I'm enjoying writing Manhunt, I've actually really jumped into this story I told you that combines part of my real life experiences with fiction about the soldier who finds a dog that changes his life. That's become a real outlet. I've really gotten into it. I've really enjoyed writing it so far. And I think it flows much easier because there are so many things there that are related to my own life that the story is just so easy to write. And I think that makes a big difference as opposed to writing something from a completely fictional background.
That is amazing, too. And looking forward to the rest of your work coming up as well, too. Love to have you back on. And who do you consider your biggest influence in your career?
Are you talking military career or currently?
It can be both.
Well, I will have to say my biggest influence for me in my time for the military was my father. My father was an Army veteran. He was actually killed in an Army training accident when I was 5 years old.
Oh, my. So sorry.
And, yeah, the reason why I say that he was one of my biggest influencers for my military career is because I actually went into the military simply because I had a curiosity about it because of my father. And since he was killed, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go in. I want to see what it's like. What is this about? I want to see what my father did. And, I really had no idea how long I was going to stay in. And then, of course, I go in, and there I go, almost 22 years later, I finally retire from the Army. So as far as my military career, I would have to say that was probably the biggest influence I had, even though I had a lot of great leaders and mentors while I was in the military that taught me so much. I think currently, to be honest with you, and this is probably going to sound a little cliche, but I really have to credit my wife with a lot of things in my life at this point. She has been beside me through all of these things I'm dealing with, not just the mental aspect of the PTSD, but the physical surgeries I've had to have because of military injuries and all those years that have just taken a toll on my body. And she has stood by me. She's encouraged me. She's always there for me when I need her. So, I think at this point in my life, she's probably been one of the biggest influences. And she's also 100% behind my writing as well. Wow,
that is something. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, I tell you what, I'm 60 years old now. And I spent the first years of my life, on a schedule like I was on a racetrack, and I thought I was invincible. But I think the biggest advice I could give to someone is, as you go through your life, especially when you're younger, every once in a while, stop and take a look and think about where you're at now and how it can affect you in the future. Because there are so many things we do when we're younger that we think we're indestructible. We think we will never, ever have to pay the consequences for. And I don't mean that in a bad way. When I say that, I'm saying I'm now paying the consequences physically and mentally for my career in the military. And it's not that I have any ill feelings about it. I don't blame anyone because I chose that career. But I do now see how some of the things I did when I was younger have caused some of the problems I'm having now. So that's why I say, one of the good pieces of advice I could give is think about where you're at, where you're heading, and how what you're doing right now is going to get you there and affect you along the way.
That is amazing. And Paul, just want to say a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Author Paul Hobert, retired Army veteran, Northern Virginia, with the books The Term Limits and also Danger Down Under. And once again, what's your upcoming projects, your website, how do people contact you, and where can they purchase your books?
Well, Mike, I my website is theliteraryvet.net, LITERARYVET.net. They can also reach me at theliteraryvet at gmail.com. So if you go to my website, it will actually give them all the details about my writing, my books. There are links there to where you can find them, but they are available on both publisher sites. They're available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, books on the web, and a number of online retailers. I actually have them in several stores here locally where I live as well. They carry them on the shelf, but for your viewers all over, that's exactly where they could find them online.
That is amazing. Paul, just want to say a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Look forward to having you on again soon. And do us a favor, keep us up to date.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been very nice talking with you.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And watch the interview on YouTube. Also, become a sponsor of the program and or donate today at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of The Mike Wagner Show.